So when Pokemon revealed Ash was leaving, I was apprehensive at first. I felt that without him, could the anime even work anymore? I thought his personality was perfect for a long-running series. He went through each season growing tremendously, the Kanto and Johto season showing his overconfidence, while the Hoenn and Sinnoh seasons resolving that, showing his growth. Then Best Wishes worked with his emotional intelligence while catapulting that into Kalos, where he showed off his battle prowess and emotional intelligence. And then this finally concluded in Sun and Moon and Journeys, where that showed his growth to its max. So when Ash's journey was about to come to an end, I felt like I wanted him to have a reset and go back to those classic journeys that I grew up with and what I felt like the series needed. Selfishly. Okay, so I'm going to discuss the protagonists of Pokemon Horizons and then discuss their growth in battle and finally discuss the stories' format. And now that Liko and Roy have taken front stage, I full-heartedly believe that this was the best thing that could have happened to the series. I should clarify that I knew no matter what it would still be good, I was just scared of change. To start off with, like I said, Ash and Alola in Journeys was already reaching his peak. In Journeys, you could feel that they didn't really grasp his character anymore, in my opinion at least. I felt like the things he did was no longer in character. I felt like they over-matured him to a point where he was no longer particularly an engaging character anymore. And don't get me wrong, he still was, just not compared to how he was. And I'm actually glad that's how things worked out. So in the end, Ash retiring was a wonderful choice that allowed the anime to grow in other ways. While I definitely would have ended his story differently, that's a whole different discussion. So, onto Liko and Roy's story. When first starting, I was immediately hooked. The introduction to Pokemon made me realize we're about to see a beautiful story unfold. I felt like they understood what made the series so amazing before we even got introduced to any characters yet. And then we meet Liko. Immediately we understand her character thoroughly. She's an overthinker as we see the world in the beginning from her inner dialogue exclusively. And her and Sprigatito both having that in common, both of them having to work on themselves by sharing themselves to the world, and I felt like it was such a beautiful story in just the microcosm way we got to see it, and I'm excited to see how it will future develop, if it does at least. The story itself was executed wonderfully too. Everything flowed so easily into the next, and the dramatic interactions between the explorers and the rising Volt-tacklers, well that's a mouthful, was an amazing spectacle. Also, the music? Am I the only one who thinks it's beyond incredible? Just me? Okay. Now on to Roy. He's so wholesome and adorable. His earnestness and wanting to sing with Coco is wonderful and cute and also a bit strange, but either way. I also love how his grandpa allowed him to go because Roy was not thinking of only himself anymore, and I'm excited to see where Roy's curiosity gets him to next. Honestly, don't have much to say on him yet, but I see a lot of potential in him. In terms of the rising Volt-tacklers, I feel like they make a great dynamic and I'm excited to learn more about their stories. They're all very wholesome. Now moving on towards Liko's and Roy's growth as trainers. While we aren't very far into the story, I really like how they've been handling their progression as trainers, starting up from the basics. I love such type of stories. At first, Liko and Sprigatito's big steps was their big leafage, but that couldn't win them any battles other than prolonging them, giving them chances to run. I assume the reason they won against the explorers at one time was because they were especially weak or something, perhaps because Golduck is weak to, I don't know, the grass type Sprigatito. Then Roy's wanting to help Fuecoco sing helped them take their first step. It's all very natural and it has a really nice flow to all of it, which I really like. After that, Liko and Roy begin training together and learn the basics together with Captain Pikachu. Eventually, Roy does a battle against Brassius and begins learning even more from him. Then they do their best to ward off Arboliva and they just continue taking baby steps and I love it. They've yet to win a proper battle, so I'm excited to see that hopefully. It's possible some more things have happened by the time this video comes out, but that's it so far. Finally, I want to talk about how the story's format is looking like. Something I both liked and didn't in Journeys was the world exploration they had going for it. Every few episodes were somewhere else and it didn't leave a lasting impression, and I didn't feel a sense of cohesion with it. So when I heard Pokemon Horizons will be doing the same, I was worried. Well, those worries are completely gone now. Unless they change something, I think that what they're doing right now is great. Instead of randomly going from one place to another and another place to another, there's always a goal while making stops along the way, which is pretty much like the original format, just a lot bigger scale. It still has that linearity and goal progression, but it's more like a world-hopping, odyssey, traversing exploration. At the moment, the goal is finding the shiny Rayquaza, and I assume that'll be the goal for quite a while. And we are also stopping in Paldea, so I assume we'll explore quite a bit of that before we head on, which I'm really excited for. I'm glad that we're gonna be able to spend some time with Paldea, unlike in the past. And I hope that even after we move on, if I guess, like I'm assuming that we're not gonna go to the snowy mountains and like Glaciero mountains and all of that. So I hope that we do get to come back eventually. And I hope that it continues keeping that linear progression throughout the story. And I like that there's an actual goal, as in finding the shiny Rayquaza, which is a lot more, I guess, feasible than catching all of the Pokemon like with Go, which is sort of just very random. I feel like each place that we go to will feel like it has a bit more purpose. I think it's also a great way to keep the pace a bit more slower than jumping from a Paldea 1 episode to saying they're in Johto in the next, and then 3 episodes later they're in Sinnoh. I really think the format chosen was the best choice and allows the series to have other goals than just becoming the champion, though I am curious to see how they'll handle that part. Well, that's my opinion, but what do you think? I'd love to hear. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye!